Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Erin and I love sharing tips, tricks, and all the mistakes we made on our trip so you don't make the same mistakes on yours. So I just got back from spending a week in Japan, but this isn't going to be a typical video in which I share basic logistics, how do you get around. These are really more notes that I wrote down for myself that I think would be really helpful whether it's someone visiting on their first trip or whether it's someone visiting on their 10th trip. So without further ado, let's jump right into the 17 things that I think you should know before visiting Japan. Tip number 1, fly into Osaka and not into Tokyo. Now, a lot of folks, when they think of flying into Japan, they'll most likely think of flying into Narita or Haneda. But instead of flying into either one of those two, I recommend actually flying into Kansai International Airport instead. Now, if you are planning to do Tokyo, Kyoto, and Osaka on your trip, it's a lot better to just fly into Kansai International Airport, explore Kyoto and Osaka region, and then once you're done, you take the Shinkansen once up to Tokyo, and that's your trip. This way, you avoid doing that round trip Shinkansen, and it saves you a lot more time and money. Another reason why you should do it this way is that Kansai International Airport is a lot less busy than either Narita or Haneda, so it's a lot less overwhelming flying in, and the lines are a lot shorter when it comes to customs. Tip number 2, skip the major hotel chains and go with a local brand instead. Now, I actually had to reserve a room last minute, and Marriott's and Hilton's were upwards of $1,000 a night per room, and I was not okay spending that. So I ended up just going on Expedia, on hotels.com, and I actually found a couple of local brands that weren't very well known, and they were very central in terms of location and really, really clean as well. So instead of shelling out $400 to $500 a night, I recommend just looking up a couple of local brands. Chances are they're super up to standards, they're also really, really clean, and you don't end up spending that much time in your hotel room anyways. Tip number 3, which area should you actually stay in if you're visiting Tokyo? Now, my two main areas has always been Shibuya and Shinjuku, and I understand that may be really, really busy for a lot of folks, and some people might just want something quieter. But I always found myself gravitating towards that area every single time we go to Japan because they have a ton of restaurants that are readily available at literally like within 5 minutes walking distance, and the shopping is amazing. But I also have to caveat that Shibuya is also going to be a little bit more expensive than Shinjuku. So if you are looking for something a little bit more affordable, I definitely recommend looking into Shinjuku as it is pretty central to everything you want to do, and the shopping and the food around there is amazing. Tip number 4, Kyoto can be expensive, so here's an alternative. Now, back in 2019, we didn't know this trick and ended up spending $700 a night on accommodations, staying in the central in the heart of Kyoto. Now, this time when I ended up going back, I actually based myself in Osaka around Osaka Station and ended up taking the JR train both days into Kyoto Station, and that was way more affordable and it was actually pretty easy. Now, if you are trying to shoot those early morning scenes, I still recommend staying in Kyoto and looking for something around the $200 to $300 range. But if you aren't really trying to shoot early and you just want to find something that's a bit more affordable, staying in Osaka is a great option and taking the JR train, which is only a 30-minute to Kyoto Station. Tip number 5, restaurant reservations are a must. Now, this landscape has completely changed when we last went in 2019 because I remember us just going into like more popular restaurants, and because it was only 2 people, they were able to find like seats last minute really easily, and we really didn't make any reservations, not that I remember back when we went in 2019. Now it's a completely different landscape, especially some of the more viral restaurants. Some of the more viral restaurants, you have to book out weeks and months in advance. A lot of these more viral restaurants will have same day reservations. So let's just say they open up at 11 for lunch and 5 for dinner. They do sometimes open up their queues at 9 a.m. so you can arrive early, put your name down, and this lets you either make a lunch or dinner reservation. Now, when they say that their lines open at 9, I would recommend going even earlier, like around 8:20 if it's a really popular restaurant. Now, this one line I ended up queuing for actually stopped all the reservations at 9 on the dot, even though online it says they open at 9 because they were completely booked out for the rest of the day. So if it's a restaurant that you really want to try out, I definitely recommend going earlier if they have same day reservations. Tip number 6, buying matcha. Now, before I went to Japan, I was convinced that if I don't go to Uji, that I was not going to get good matcha. But this was really not the case. If you run out of time and you can't do a day trip out to Uji, I recommend just purchasing all your matcha in Kyoto because they had the same selection, and for the most part, it was pretty readily available of everything that I wanted to buy. But do note that a lot of these popular brands that you most likely have saved will have limits per customer, and most oftentimes it'll be 1 tin per person per day, which most of their tins are like 20 grams, which is really not that much matcha if you think about it. Like 20 grams, if you use like 4 to 5 grams per day, that won't even last you a week. So instead of shopping the more popular brands, which do limit their matcha, I recommend checking out some of the smaller shops. Like some of the ones I found in Kyoto and Tokyo were actually amazing quality, and they gave you a little bit of sample as well. And one of them that I purchased actually tastes very similar to Wacko, and they were able to sell me like 2 50-gram jars, which if you think about it, that goes way further than that 20-gram tin. So instead of trying to go shop at all the more popular brands and trying to like find all of those, I recommend shopping some of the smaller brands and making sure you sample to get pretty much the same matcha quality, but they don't limit you. But do know that all matcha is not created the same, and if you haven't tried it, you might not personally like it. So just because the internet recommends it and raves about it, it might not be to your liking. So whatever you do, definitely try before you buy. Tip number 7, you need cash. Now, I really didn't think that Japan was going to require any cash because when I went to China last year, they were pretty much entirely cashless. Even some of like the street food vendors, actually all the street food vendors, none of them actually required cash anymore. So I thought for sure Japan was going to be the same, but that was not the case. A lot of more popular restaurants and street food vendors solely required cash, and especially some of the best foods I encountered on my trip, the vendors only took cash, like the sweet potato guys or some of the street vendors selling strawberries, like fresh Japanese strawberries. They only required cash. So you would miss out if you didn't have cash on you, but it's actually very easy to get cash in Japan. Instead of going to a major bank or trying to like go out of your way to find a major bank, just go to an ATM at a convenience store. Now you can find them at Lawson's, at 7-Elevens, Family Mart. These convenience stores will have the lowest fees, and they're also really readily available, so there's really no issues on getting any yen at all. Tip number 8 is Mount Fuji. Now, I didn't realize how big the area around Mount Fuji was because you could literally spend an entire trip just going to surrounding places around Mount Fuji and still not have seen it all. So the first time we did Mount Fuji, we did a day trip to Hakone, and this time I really wanted to do like a more Instagram photo op type of a trip, but I really didn't know how to put it together, like the Lawson spot, the famous pagoda spot, and a couple of more like those scenic spots, because when I put it all on my maps, I didn't really see a lot of options for public transit. So instead of dealing with public transit, which sometimes might not be the most reliable, I recommend just booking a day trip on Klook, which is exactly what I ended up doing. It was $50 for the entire day, and I think it was like a 12-hour day. We started around 8:30 and came back around 6:30, and they take you from Tokyo to areas around Mount Fuji, and they tell you all the like little best spots. And it was honestly a lot easier than having to figure out like piece by piece where you were gonna go. So if you're planning a day to Mount Fuji and don't want to deal with logistics, I'd say just do a day trip with a Klook. It's honestly the easiest. Tip number 9, don't go to the most popular spots early in the morning. Now, this is controversial and unlike any advice I've ever given, because I always recommend you going early in the morning, especially around sunrise for least amount of crowds. But what I found out to be true this trip is actually when you go during sunrise, a lot of people know this tip now. And so a lot of people will try to like beat sunrise, will get there right before sunrise. And it's honestly really still crowded right around sunrise or shortly thereafter. So instead, I recommend you actually going like 2 hours before sunset. I ended up going to 2 of the most popular spots in Japan around that hour, and honestly, I didn't feel like it was really crowded at all. So instead of going really early in the morning, I recommend saving those for the afternoon, like 2 hours before sunset, where most of the day crowds have pretty much died down. Tip number 10, Teamlabs. So now there's in total 3 different basically big Teamlabs that you can pick from, and that's Planet, Borderless, and now BioVortex. borderless. Now, how I would describe it to a friend is the difference between borderless and planets is one, you take off your shoes, and the other, you don't take off your shoes. So the one in which you have to take off your shoes is planets, and this is the one in which you're walking through water, and it's a lot more of a sensory type of an experience overall. The other one is borderless, and this one's more cookie cutter in which your shoes are on, you're walking through light installations, and now there's a third one that just opened up last year in Kyoto called BioVortex, and this is by far my favorite Teamlabs. Now, I really didn't think they were going to be able to like top their two previous ones because a lot of the rooms I saw online, they were like kind of repeating, such as the Infinity Light room and the Lantern room, but they outdid themselves once again. Now, there are a lot of like repetition, and you walk in and you're like, oh, okay, like I've seen this before, but they also have a handful of installations that are unique to BioVortex, and these I honestly love. Tip number 11, hunting for Onitsuka Tigers. Now, I didn't realize there's like a whole strategy behind this, and pretty much getting that one pair of shoe that you have your eyes on can be like looking for a rare Pokemon. So some of the bigger stores with a lot more traffic will be like your Ginza, Shibuya, Kyoto, but I also didn't realize how many smaller stores there are. Like Onitsuka Tigers are pretty much like on par with how many convenience stores you'll find because they're pretty much like everywhere. But here's a simple strategy. If you're looking for something that's like always more sold out, I recommend going to like one of the stores that has a lot more traffic, like a Ginza. Chances are that you will most likely find that black and white pair of flats there instead of like a smaller shop. Now, if you want to shop with less people, then I do recommend going to some of the smaller stores because the Ginza store and the Osaka store and the Kyoto store, there was just way too many people, and like pretty much I would enter and I was like, no, I'm giving up on this today. Like it was just so many people. It was like overwhelming. So if you do have a pair of shoes that you have saved that you know are pretty readily available, I recommend just shopping at some of like the smaller, lesser well-known stores instead of going to like a major store. But if you do have something that is a little bit more rare, like the black and white ballet flats, then I still recommend going to one of the more popular stores like a Ginza, because chances are they'll mostly have it there. Tip number 12, Donqi. Now, before I arrived into Japan, I literally thought like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited for Donqi. Like this is going to be the best experience. 7 floors, 8 floors of shopping. No, this was probably the most overstimulating experience I had in Japan, and I don't recommend this to anybody because oftentimes you go to Donqi like right around 9 or 10, but you can also go like at a 3 a.m. because a lot of these Donqi are open for 24 hours, but it's so overwhelming in there. The aisles are tiny and it's like really hot in there, and also a lot of the Donqi I went to didn't have that much service, so you're on your phone scrolling, you're trying to figure out what products you need to buy while trying not to get like shoved into an aisle, and it just was like not it for me. So instead of going to a Donqi, I recommend just going to like a local drugstore, which pretty much had all the most popular items anyways. And sometimes I actually found the prices at local drugstores to be a little bit more competitive than a Donqi. Tip number 13, you need a good pair of shoes. Now, I cannot stress this enough because you will be walking on average 25,000 to 35,000 steps a day, which is honestly crazy and exponential if you consider that on average, you probably walk like 5,000 to 10,000, if that, a day. So a good pair of walking shoes is essential. Tip number 14, Google Maps. Now, before I went, I saw that online that Google Maps was pretty much the thing that everybody used to get around, to figure out public transit, but I actually didn't find it to be the most reliable. So I would recommend, like if you have something that you're kind of weary of, to still Google it instead of just relying on Google Maps. For example, on one of my trips, I wanted to go from Asakusa to Shibuya, and on Google Maps, it recommended me take a route with 3 transfers that would take like an hour and 20 minutes. However, as soon as I put that into Google, like how to get from Asakusa to Shibuya, it immediately popped up that I should just take the Ginza line that'll get me straight from Asakusa to Shibuya without any transfers. And another thing I noticed about Google Maps is the first option that pops up wasn't always the shortest amount of time. Sometimes for some reason, like the shortest amount of times would be like buried kind of in the 3rd or 4th option. So instead of always going with the first option, definitely try scrolling a little bit because there might be a better cheaper option below. Tip number 15, Shibuya Sky. Now, being the last minute person that I am, I kind of just walked up to the counter on an amazingly clear day, 30 minutes before sunset, and asked, hey, like, I'd like to buy a ticket last minute. And the person literally looked at me dumbfounded and was like, sorry, but we sold out of these tickets like 3 weeks ago, and you have to reserve your tickets in advance. So here I am trying to scramble. Like, I'm like, holy crap, it's about to be an amazing sunset. It's a super clear day. What am I going to do? So I kind of hovered there for a moment until they kind of like gave up and was like, well, I guess you could try to purchase the Shibuya Pass. And up until this point, I had no idea what the Shibuya Pass was, and I didn't even know it existed. But essentially what it is you pay 6,000 yen and you get access to like 60 different activities, experiences around Shibuya. And in this pass actually includes access to Shibuya Sky. And you don't have to make a reservation, and you're able to enter whenever you want. You just walk up to the ticket counter at Shibuya Sky, say, hey, like I want to use my Shibuya Pass. They scan it and you can go at any time. Now, this is such a clutch hack because a lot of people will reserve Shibuya Sky like weeks in advance, and then the day of their reservation, they'll realize, oh crap, like it's actually not a good day for a sunset. But if you get the Shibuya Pass, you can go whenever you want. So if it's a sunny day and you're like, okay, it's going to be an amazing sunset, you can literally walk up to the ticket counter and get it. Tip number 16, 7-Eleven. Now, a lot of people will go to 7-Eleven to get their onigiris, to get their kind of like baked goods. And a lot of what you see online is super carb heavy. And that's honestly pretty much Japan overall. Like a lot of the meals you have will be super, super carb heavy because, you know, they're big on rice, they're big on noodles. So I found myself at the beginning of my trip, I was like, oh my gosh, where do I go for like extra protein? And I found out that at 7-Eleven, there's actually an entire section to like protein. There's like boiled eggs that you can get. There's literally grilled chicken that tastes pretty freaking good. So instead of like kind of just like overloading on those like carb heavy items, if you do need a break from that, there's a ton of protein options at 7-Eleven as well. Tip number 17, bring a little plastic bag for your trash. Now, I completely thought this was like a cultural thing, but it's actually due to the 1995 Tokyo subway sarin gas attacks, which is why the city doesn't have that many trash bins, because people believe that in these trash bins, they would be used to hide bombs. So people just kind of got rid of trash bins altogether and just kind of ended up living that way. And with that, those are the 17 things that I genuinely wish someone had told me before my trip to Japan. If you found that helpful, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.